So it's officially confirmed, as a bit of a follow-up to my tier maker live stream that I did. It's all but confirmed now, officially, that Oklahoma and Texas are going to join the SEC. However, the good news, if you're a fan of them being in the Big 12, is that won't happen for another 4 years. In other words, 2025. And a lot could change by that time frame. And I pretty much stick by what I said in the tier list. I feel that if there's going to be any realignments, at any time during those next 4 years, that those realignments are going to be the way I pretty much predict them to be. Now, surprisingly, I'm not the only one here on YouTube that's done realignment videos. I talked about the potential places of realignment for a lot of the college teams when it comes to conferences. But the biggest question a lot of people have is what's going to happen to the Big 12. Is it going to dissolve? Is it going to expand? What's going to happen? And if you look at my tier maker list, on the situation, or if you watched it when I did it live, or if you're watching it, afterwards, if you viewed it on places like DeviantArt, basically, I don't think the Big 12 is going to go anywhere. I think the Big 12 is going to be fine. I think, in a way, they might retain some teams, away from other conferences. Yeah. Like I said in that tier list, I think the Big 12 might retain the likes of Missouri, and they might retain the likes of Nebraska because, hey, they don't have to worry about the likes of Oklahoma and Texas anymore because they'll be in the SEC. So what better opportunity, would there be for the likes of a Missouri or the likes of a Nebraska to potentially have a more open opportunity to be a conference champion and be, let's say, in a major bowl game, if not a playoff, to then jump back ship, or jump ship back, I should say, to the conference where you first established yourself. And I think, that's logically the next step for them in the process, because here's the thing. You think Nebraska and Missouri, according to some projections I've seen here on YouTube and elsewhere, are going to want to be in the same division in the SEC as Oklahoma and Texas? I don't think so. I think they'd rather be like, what, we out, we're going back to the Big 12. And I think that's logically what's going to happen. The same thing with, if there's any movement from the Big 12 to another conference, I see Kansas and Kansas State and Iowa State, being amongst those going to the Big 10. I really do. I know some people are saying, well, Kansas State is being more courted by the Pac-12. That is true. I'm not denying that. But, to me, I think it makes more financial sense, for them to go to the Big 10 instead of going to the Big, the Pac-12 or being separated because you lose that rivalry of the Sunflower Showdown. So, to me, Kansas and Kansas State going to the Big 10 makes more logical sense along with Iowa State because you keep that in-state rivalry going but on a bigger platform, and you also keep that in-state rivalry between Iowa and Iowa State going, and you could even schedule it for the end of the year where most rivalries like theirs can be concluded. Could happen, I should say, concluded to cap off the season, whether they have a bowl eligible record or they don't. So I still stick by what I believe is going to happen. And like I said, the Pac-12 in the end is going to be one of the beneficiaries. I really do. It, the ACC, and the SEC are going to be the three top beneficiaries out of this. There's a lot of people that talk about, we're only going to have a Power 4 group of conferences. No, we'll still have a Power 5, but the top three out of that 5 are going to be Pac-12, SEC, and ACC, with the Big 12 and the Big 10 rounding things out. Because of the fact that when you look at from a peripheral, star power school wise, if you will, that's kind of ridiculous. I know it sounded kind of ridiculous to say that way, but if you look at it from a star power school-wise star power, if you will, and academic-wise as well, those three conferences would definitely be on the top tier. They would be. So to me, Pac-12, SEC, and ACC are going to be leading the pack out of the 5 powerhouse conferences, when it comes to college football playoffs, national championships, New Year's Day 6 games, you name it. They're going to be leading the pack because of the potential of teams that can get in that will represent their conference. Now, the biggest question, though, a lot of fans would have as well, that I'm surprised that hasn't been asked, is how would this affect the bowl, season? How would this, how would this affect, the postseason in the bowl games, the college bowl season, if you will, bowl mania, if you will, that takes place afterwards in December and into January. How would this affect it? And I'll say this, it probably will affect it in a big way, because there's a lot of bowl games that rely on conference tie-ins from small to medium to big time, if you will. So I think it will affect it in a big way, because a lot of those slots that would be open for like at-large teams to get into a bowl game, in case, let's say, a conference representative doesn't have the record to do so, those at-large slots pretty much will be going away. If these realignments, as I and others are projecting, in their opinion, take place. Because, let's say the Pac-12, is realigned the way I'm projecting it's going to be realigned, then to me, they'll have plenty of representatives to get in. They will have plenty of representatives to get into a bowl game. Same with the Big Ten, same with the SEC, the ACC, the AAC. They will have plenty of teams to get in, and that is a fact. That is a major, major fact. So any smaller schools that would assume, hey, maybe I'll get an at-large bid to this bowl game down the line, which I normally wouldn't get a shot at, they can forget it. They can forget about that ever happening. So, to me, I definitely think that the realignments, here in college football in the next several years is going to have a major impact, if you will, on the college bowl season. And it may cause the college football playoffs to expand, from 4 to 6 to maybe 8 teams, at most. But besides that, it's definitely going to have, like I said, a major, major impact overall, because a lot of schools, small conference schools, mid-conference schools, and even some of the at-large conference schools, they may not have the best record, but they have basically an eligible record for a bowl game. Those at-large bids are going to go up in smoke, because it's going to be a lot harder for them, especially if they're a smaller conference or a mid-conference team or school. It's going to be a lot harder now because of the realignments, which is why I think a lot of these schools are going to be going to different conferences, so that they at least have that opportunity to get into a bowl game no matter what the situation. This is why I believe, here in California, you got San Jose State and Fresno State, in my opinion, that are going to be Pac-12 bound. This is why I also think Hawaii, the Warriors, the Rainbow Warriors, are going to be Pac-12 bound. UNLV is going to be Pac-12 bound, all because they will realize that with these realignments, their chances at getting into a bowl game, even as an at-large, are going to be slimmer than they've ever been. So to me, the realignment's going to have a huge impact, especially with how schools decide where to, pledge their allegiance to conference-wise in the next several years. So yeah, it is official that in 2025, Oklahoma and Texas are SEC bound, and I do believe that in between that time frame, there's going to be a lot more realignments happening, and I believe, in my opinion, that some of the projections of where I think teams will go are probably the most logical and realistic to happen. Not saying some of them will come to pass, as I said in that live stream when I did it. This is just because that's just how I see it, but I think some of those may just actually come to pass, in the next several years. So do not be surprised when you go on the internet and you go to Yahoo News, you go to ESPN, you go to Fox Sports, CBS Sports or wherever, and they start, mentioning the fact that Kansas and Kansas State are Big Ten bound. San Jose State, Fresno State are Pac-12 bound. UC Davis is, going to upgrade from FCS to the FBS and be part of the Mountain West. Don't be surprised if you start hearing that kind of stuff, because it will happen. Don't be surprised if you hear news of Nebraska and Missouri leaving both individually the Big Ten and the SEC to go back to the Big 12. Don't be surprised by that, because there is a potential that it will indeed happen. But what do you guys think? What are your thoughts on the SEC getting Oklahoma and Texas in 2025? How do you think this will affect any schools deciding to realign their allegiance conference-wise in the next several years? Do you agree with some of my projections on whether some teams could land conference-wise in the future? Let us all know. Let me know down in the comments section, as well as in the live chat during the premiere. Like the video, guys, and I will talk to you later. But yeah, give me your thoughts on it. How do you feel about it? And I am out.